Talk a little bit about safety, some weather issues, some do's and don'ts of tenting. My name is Ray. Oakland, Wisconsin is a town situated between the two great motherlands in this country. I'm 30 miles south of Green Bay, home of the best damn football team ever. And, and I'm 100 miles north of Milwaukee, Wisconsin, home of the best damn motorcycle in the world. So that's where I live, right between those two motherlands. My background, I started in the tent rental business when I was 17, 18 years old, somewhere in that neighborhood. I'm now 63 years old. I've been doing it for 45, 50 years. I actually started back in the day of canvas tents and wooden stakes, and I've seen the evolution from that point to this point. I currently work for a manufacturer in Green Bay, Wisconsin. I'm no longer in the tent rental business. American Tent, whom you purchase these tents from, and we're just going to talk a little bit today about the installation of the tent, some of the do's and don'ts, some of the things we have to worry about as far as tempting Mother Nature. She's a bitch. You just don't want to tempt her, okay? So, first off, I got to give you guys a great big pat on the back. I saw the tents over at Depot Street, and I've seen this tent. You guys are doing a great job. The tents are, you're not taking any serious shortcuts. I've showed you a few that we need to rectify. Just keep in mind that when you go to assemble these tents, they are a sum of a bunch of pieces to make one structure. And if you fail at one or more pieces, you're going to fail at the overall structure. So like I said before, if there's a hole, it needs to be filled. Where a pipe and a fitting go together, it needs to have a pin in it. And then again, everything needs to be touched once it's in the air. Now at the mercy of Mother Nature, she will throw a lot of stuff at you. All of the things do serious damage to the tent. I'm assuming you're down before snow load season. Yeah, sometimes you get that freak snowstorm, and I've seen them. You get 5 or 6 inches of that heavy snow. This thing very easily could collapse in the middle. It could collapse over here above my head. You want to get that snow off ASAP. You can't really heat this. If you had sidewall on, one solution is heat, and you can get the tent at 40 degrees, and it's going to be 40, 50, 70 degrees at the top. The snow will melt right off. You don't have that option. Your option, get the top off, or somebody stands guard with a snow rake and rakes or hoses the snow off of the tent. Wind, rain, hail, you really have no defense against that other than a good install. Okay? If your tent is installed to the factory specs and everything is tight, it should handle any amount of rain that Mother Nature can throw at it. Hail, providing the hail is not in those very large golf ball or larger where it's actually going to puncture the tent top, not going to be an issue. And wind, all bets off after about 50 miles an hour. Your evacuation point for this tent should be 38 miles an hour or less. The reason for 38 miles an hour is not at 39 it's going to collapse or 40 it's going to collapse. At 38 miles an hour, that's when things start to move that normally don't move. Lawn furniture, porta potties, picnic tables, things like that now become missiles. And so at 38 miles an hour, you want to get people from here to a safe haven without having to be dodging things that are moving and flying around. So it's not how hard the wind blows, it's what the wind blows is what our concern is. 38 to 50 miles an hour. I have a t-shirt at home that says, "I am the tent installer. If you see me running, try to keep up." At 38 to 50 miles an hour, that's the shirt I have on. I'm the first one out, honestly, okay? I've been under these tents in that window. It's not exciting. I mean, it is exciting. It is not exciting. It's scary, okay? Things are moving around, pipes are moving, tent tops flapping. our pins are falling out. There's some crazy stuff that goes on. So that 38 to 50 miles an hour, I don't recommend anybody being underneath these structures. After 50, definitely not. At that point, you're totally at the mercy of Mother Nature. I teach a tent school several times a year throughout the country, and one of the things I tell people is most people don't understand what I'm saying, 38, 40, or 50. You know what it is in your car because you have a speedometer that tells you that. But when you're standing out here, you don't know what it is. So I tell people, well, if you really want to know, pretend you're a dog. Get in your car, have somebody drive, roll that window down. Stick your torso out 38 miles an hour. You're going to understand how strong that wind is. I don't recommend doing that at 50 miles an hour, but 30, 35, 38, 40 miles an hour, if you want to experience it, you'll experience what that wind is all about. There are evacuation alarms that are manufactured for many, many different industries. I personally have built one strictly for tents. And basically what it is it's an anemometer that mounts on top of the tent. The anemometer is that little whirligig thing that goes around. And then there's an alarm box that mounts inside the tent that's got a warning that you can set at, say, 25 miles an hour. And all that is a flashing yellow light. And that's basically, hey, it's getting windy, pay attention, we may have to evacuate. And then at that 38 mile an hour, it goes to a white flashing light and a siren. It's very similar to the fire alarms you have installed in your buildings. I chose that tone and that flashing light because all of these children go through, and I did as a child too, fire alarms. They know when that horn and that flashing light, something's going on, we need to move. So those are available. A lot of municipalities throughout the country, they require anytime a tent is occupied that the wind is monitored. They don't tell you how. It could be as simple as, it's your job. You stand out here and you've got the handheld tool in your hand and you monitor the wind. Some places require that wind gets monitored every 15 minutes and logged and all this kind of stuff. I don't think you have any of that issues up here. Just pay attention to the wind. I believe, what did you tell me? You're using 25-ish?
Yeah, 25, 28.
Yeah, 25, 28. That's fabulous. Okay, you're getting people out before anything could possibly happen. There is no positive spin to any human being getting hurt or losing their life underneath one of these. There's no reason for it. So those are the things that I want you to pay attention to, is just basically wind, and then your morning or weekly walk around, just pay attention to the integrity of the tent, any missing pins, any web guides that are loose, and tighten all of the straps all the way around on the tent. And I've showed you before that we don't want to just grab on, let me try and stay in front of that camera, there we go. We don't want to grab just on this strap and yank. That will eventually do damage up here into the tent. So what we want to do is we want to grab here, pull tight, and then snug it up. Come on over here, pull the tent top tight. You can see how much I'm getting tension into this fabric, and then pull there. Pull here, pull there, and continue on all the way around the tent. If you don't like your co-worker, ask him to stand right here and pull. He'll get the bath and you won't. Yeah, he'll get the forearm. Things to look for when you just generally, if you're walking through here, look for water pockets. That's one of the biggest killers of these tents. Is you might get somewhat of a loosen, like this strap right here is pretty loose. I'll go back here and loosen this one up where I've already tightened it. Okay, now that these are a little bit loose, as the water runs off the tent, it could collect right here and create what I call a water pond. So if you see any of that water ponding, all you gotta do is hit it with your hand like this and it'll wash right off, and then tighten that area right back up again. I don't know the exact number on the elastic properties of this fabric, okay? It will stretch under a load, water. It will stretch under heat conditions. It'll contract under cold conditions. So this tent top is continuously moving. I don't know what that number is. Is it moving a couple inches over 30 degrees? Is it moving eighths of inches? I don't know. All I can tell you is they are moving. I can see it. On a very hot day, you'll see these things. They'll be a little bit more saggy, not quite as taut and flat. And then as they go overnight, they will contract back up again. So they will move around, and if you get any sort of humidity, heavy dew, heavy fog overnight, that's all water that's going to land on here. And then as the sun comes up and the temperature changes, it'll create a stretch, which creates a water pocket, and then that water gets caught into those water pockets. So these tents do not have a what's the word for it? A loading factor. In other words, I can't tell you what is the snow load. There is no snow load. Same with water. Same with if you were hanging anything in here, any sort of decor, any sort of lighting, anything like that. I can't tell you what the numbers are because they don't exist. These tents are designed to be just what you see, a roof and a frame, and that's it. And when we start adding load to it, like lighting, decor, rain, snow, we are going above and beyond the design limitation of the structure. So keep the loads to a minimum or to zero. In other words, get the snow off ASAP. If any of the water is collecting along the edge of the tent, get rid of that water, and you won't have any problems with the tent itself. I'm sorry?
Blankets and paper from the cable.
Yeah, you probably shouldn't. You probably shouldn't hang anything from this. We are currently working on a design with our engineering department where these cables are going to go away, or not go away. They're actually going to go from that point. They're going to go up and sort of follow the angle of the rafter pipe, and then there'll be another cable here dead center coming down, so that the cable will actually pull to the center like that and get it up out of the way, so you'll be less likely to have kids trying to hang on this or stuff hanging on it, or in the Midwest in Wisconsin where we drink a lot of beer, crazy things happen to those things. We get people trying to do chin-ups, and you've heard the story, right? Hold my beer, watch this, right? We get a lot of that, all right. So we're going to try and take these cables and run them up out of reach and yet still have the same strength in the cable itself. One other thing to take a look at when you're going around and checking your web guys is check for any fray. If any of these start to fray, get rid of them right away. Replace them with a new one. The break strength on this webbing, I believe, is in the neighborhood of 6,000 pounds. Now, whenever you have a webbing, the break strength is not what you want to concern yourself with. What you want to concern yourself with is what's called the WLL, working load limit, and that is 1/3 the break strength. So if that's 6,000, it's only good for 2,000, all right? And the minute you take and have any sort of a cut in that web is going to reduce it even more. These blocks weigh somewhere between 1,500 and 1,700 pounds. So we need to resist, at minimum, that 1,500 to 1,700 pounds. At 2,000 pound working load limit, we're fine. We're in good shape. But the minute that web guide develops any sort of a fray, or if any of the stitching down in here starts to give way, or any of the stitching up in here starts to give way, it's time to get rid of those and replace them. And they don't have to be replaced in match set. If the fray is on the tail going to the block, just replace that. If it's on the handle, the ratchet handle, just replace that. You don't have to replace them as a whole.
Is there a life on those, like 5 years or something, or is it just once you start?
There is none, but I have a very close friend of mine that manufactures those in South Carolina, and their major business is cargo tie down for aircraft. The FAA regulation, 5 years regardless of use. If you buy that and put it on a shelf and it sits for 5 years, you throw it away. If you buy that and you put it on your tent for 5 years, you throw it away. 5 calendar years is where you should be discarding them completely, regardless of use. My personal opinion, if this was a 24/7, 365 install, and these were out here for 5 years, they're going to fail well before 5 years. So if they're out in the sunshine, in the weather and so on, 100% of the time, it's probably a 2-year cycle. The 5-year cycle that I would like to adopt in the tent world is because these go up for a month or 2 or 3, and then they're in the dark. And then they go back up again. So over that course of that 5 years that I'm recommending, you might only have 2 years worth of actual exposure. But 5 years, and I didn't notice, no. We are instituting a dating program now on those that we build. There's a label that's sewn on that says date of manufacture, because when did you buy those? How old are they? You don't know. The only reason we're hesitating, of course, is in this day and age, we're very sue happy and we love to end up in court, and there is no code governing these intent use. I am asking that we adopt the FAA. It hasn't happened. But that's, to answer your question, 5. Throw them away at 5. Replace them at 5. Anything from your end? Any other questions from your end as far as, because I don't have much more prepared material, so.
On one tent, we put the ratcheting mechanism down next to the block.
Mm-hmm.
Any preference, up high or down low? Just consistent?
His question was, where do we put the ratchet handle? Do we put it up high? Do we put it down low next to the anchor point, whether it be a stake or a block? I use the fat, dumb, and happy rule. I'm fat, dumb, and happy. I don't like bending over. Okay? The real reason I like them up here is that you can see what you're doing. To operate this device, I am facing the tent, I'm facing the frame, I'm doing this. If it's down here, now my back is to what I'm working on. And as I try to ratchet it here, I'm either doing it by feel or I'm having to turn my body or stop and look up. I like it here. Just for that reason. I can see what I'm doing. I can see.
People tend to mess with them.
Yeah, people tend to, from a vandalism, a public installation, a picnic or that type of an event, down low, people can mess with them easier than up high. If somebody in the general public is screwing around with it here, I think somebody's going to see them and say something versus down low. Turning the pages back a little bit to being in the rental industry, if I ever caught anybody messing with one of those, they're hired, because there are very few people that know how these things work. So if they can figure out how to mess with it, I grab them. You're hired. So yeah, up high is where I like to see it. I have had, I guess one more but to that answer. I have had wedding coordinator people, ew, that's ugly. Can you turn them around, put them down on the ground where they're not visible? So, from a strength standpoint, no difference, either way. Whatever you prefer to do. So tomorrow we're going to, weather permitting, do some disassembly and reassembly on one of the structures at one of the schools. I don't know what we're going to do exactly. So just to recap for today, the most important things, we're talking about maintenance of the tent and weather. Maintenance of the tent is just make sure that it is a sum of multiple pieces equaling one structure, and that none of those multiple pieces are causing an issue. So pins in legs, pins everywhere else, straps tight, no water pockets. If we're going to strap the center of the tent down, you can double check those also, like the one that I installed over here. And just a general look. These tents, you guys have done a great job. They're nice and square, they're straight, they're very, very good installs. So that's really all there is to it on that, on the daily or weekly maintenance. On the weather front, that's a daily deal. Mother Nature changes her mind every day. Be cognizant of wind speed. Okay, wind speed is the most important thing. You're at 25, 28, that's beautiful. Okay. The rest of the weather conditions, hopefully your season is over before snow comes and these tops are down. Do you leave the frames up, or do you take everything's gone? Okay. So I have seen clients pull just the skins and leave the top, or leave the frames, leave them installed. The wind blows through them. It's no big deal. It does save on some time in the spring putting just the tops back on. Not as easy on a tent this big. I don't know that I would recommend it. You know, if you wanted to leave the frame up, or I don't think I would. I guess given where we are, I don't think I would drop the frame, take the tops off, and leave the frame on the ground because it becomes a playground jungle gym. Probably not a good idea.
Probably about snow drifting, pushing.
Yep. Yep.
We got a question about repairs. We lost one at the high school. It filled up with water on the long side. So to save the frame, we cut a couple slits in it, drain the water out and stuff. Any way we could sew it? Or is there a heat patch, or
You cut this way in the top?
down there? We
Oh, down there? Yeah, you can.
left to right a heat patch, or
Yeah.
throw a sewing needle through it?
No sewing needles.
No.
There's very little sewing done on these tents, only because, in effect, this fabric is plastic. Okay, and when you take and run a needle hole, a series of needle holes into plastic, it weakens it tremendously, and it becomes like a zipper. And once it starts, it'll probably zipper open. The two ways that can be done to fix it is there is a fabric glue called, I don't know how many H's. It's like HHH66 or HH66 is the glue. It's a contact cement designed specifically for these fabrics. So what you would do is, if you had a slit in the tent, let's say between my two fingers like this, you would put another piece of fabric over the top, and you would cut it so that it's a minimum of 1 inch on either side of that slit. Then you take that fabric glue and you coat the tent and you coat the patch that you've made. You let both halves, what's called, tack up, so that if you just touch it, it's going to be very tacky, not wet. Once it's tacked up, then you can put that patch down on top, and it's as effective as if it was a one piece. So that's one way. The other way, I don't think you can do this, but all of these seams right here, and along here, that's all welded. Pretty fancy word for it's melted together. It's run through a machine that blows a stream of hot air at it, and then it goes through a roller which presses it down. The two pieces are basically melted together. I have fixed tents with a paint heat gun, paint stripping hot heat gun. I don't recommend this. You need a roller. Yeah, and you got to be very careful. You got to hit it at just the right temperature, and then you can use a roller and you can actually roll the two together. For people that have never worked with the fabric, I would recommend the glue route versus the hot air route.
Better off to put a patch underneath of that too, or just the top is fine?
Just on the top, yep. All patches need to be round, okay? What I mean by round is if it's a rectangle, the corners get rounded. It doesn't have to be a round patch. You can build a big long rectangle or a big long square. Just all the square corners need to be rounded when you glue it on. That way the wind and stuff can't get under the corner and flick the corner up and then the patch peels off. But for the most part, if you do it right with the glue and you follow the instructions, and you let both sides tack up, you'll never get them apart, ever. So yes, you can fix them.
That's an easy one. Now that piece over there, we just keep going and hope for the best.
I would, that one, the one where it's torn, okay, so what I would do, once you get this down and you're ready to put it away for winter, so it's torn right here where this was welded on. What I would do is just, well, it is peeled back, but peel it back, clean it, and then just put the glue approximately 1 inch wide, just like here, and then on this piece that's folded back, put the glue on right here, and then once it tacks up, just push the two together and it'll be fine. So where were we? So weather, we talked about weather, the different weather conditions that'll cause evacuation, time to get out. And that's really about it. I think you guys have a pretty good handle on installing them. Tomorrow we're going to do, like I said, we'll do a disassembly and a reassembly. With my background in the rental business, my focus has always been about productivity, about touching things only once when I go to do the install. And as a business owner, I was always worried about workman's comp. People falling off ladders was one of the biggest workman's comp claims ever. So I've eliminated the use of a ladder in all but 2 positions during the install. You should only have to go up a ladder once, put a pin in, come back down, and then when we're putting the top on, only one person should have to get on a ladder once as we pull the top down. Are you doing this like a section? You put this section on, then you put this section on, then you're lacing it together on the frame? Yeah. Okay, we're gonna do it a little bit different tomorrow. The way we're gonna do it tomorrow is that end of the tent is gonna start down here, and we're gonna put it on backwards. So in other words, we're gonna put it on the way that it will end up down there, but we're gonna do it down here, and we're gonna pull the tent this way, going down. So we'll pull it to about here is where the lace line will be. Then we're gonna take a middle, lay the middle across the frame, and now I can lace that together on my feet on the ground. So now it becomes a piece that is 20 and 20 foot. And then what we do is we grab and we whip it like we're shaking a rug, we catch air under it, and we pull it that way another 20 feet. Then we put this middle on, and again, I'm lacing it with my feet on the ground. And then we'll pull that down. Then we'll just keep doing that until we get all the way down to the other end. So you're off the ladders. It does require 6 people to pull that top, 100 feet of top, pretty much. But if we do it the way that I'm going to teach you tomorrow with the shaking out the rug method, we lift it up like that, we let the air get under it, and then we have a cushion of air, and then we pull, and it pulls pretty easy.
Does that make it easier lining this tent up, you know what I'm saying? To the edges?
Yep. Because we'll have basically everybody on the outside of the tent. There will be one person that's basically on a ladder halfway up, kind of watching for snags. And the other thing that person is doing is they're keeping the middle of the tent lined up with the middle pipe going all the way down. So it doesn't come off one and then it'll pull all the way down the tent fairly easy. So it's a pretty good, and like I said, the reason that I do that, or the way we came up with that, I don't like ladders. I hate ladders. I think ladders that's just me as a business owner and looking out for my employees. I don't like ladders. So same with all of the building of this. I do all of the building of this on the ground. I'll put the rafters together like that, and then I tip them up and I stand them up. I rotate them up. So I build assemblies and I rotate them up so I don't have to be on ladders again. It's a little different than the way you've done it. I'm not exactly sure how The assembly instructions are written from our company. I've been going through them and changing them. I don't know what you guys were taught, but that's what we're going to do tomorrow.
I figure there's gotta be a secret.
Yep.
You know what I mean? Like,
Mhm.
we've been going this and that, when you get to one point, we're like, all right. I figure that's what we're hoping when you come up here and say, guys, this is what you're doing, boom.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I gotta say the second one we did went a lot easier,
Yep.
but it was just
Yep.
getting that one spot.
Yep.
Usually the top, get you.
Yep. And it's usually that pipe coming down into that 6-way from here. This one right here causes some issues.
Yeah.
And that one going back that way.
We measured that pipe how many times this
Oh, yeah.
thinking we had.
And it's 14'4" every time, isn't it?
Pipe stretcher out. everything.
Then there was like another thing we would look at, you know, when we get it going. For some reason, it was always like down around that pipe.
Mm-hmm.
It looked like one spot was pushed out. Then you looked over here and we're like, everything else looked fine.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We're like, why is it that same?
Yep. Yep. I'll show you how to.
Make sure.
I'll show you the order in which to assemble all of these as you put them together, and I'm not going to say I've never had to give it a good kick, but for the most part, put it together. If you have pipe up against the marker pin, very close, drop it in and go. If you do these in the wrong order, they'll go together, but you'll struggle a little bit. On the West Coast, I have no clue why they do this, but they build from the bottom up. I have no clue. They actually build this whole perimeter all the way around. They put all of that together first, and then they start splicing all these pipes in going up to that point there. Never, ever, ever would I try to do that. I've seen videos of it, and I've never seen so much kicking and hammering, and you know, I start from the top down on everything, and it goes together very simple. So, I will tell you, I don't know where this pipe came from. Okay, we get some pipe from a place in Arizona that actually makes the pipe and drills it for us. We do get some from China also, and neither one of them are 100% flawless at drilling those holes. I've seen both the domestic and the China pipe where the hole for the pin, no matter what you do, it doesn't line up. The one tip that I can give you, and I don't know why this works, if you're trying to drop a pin in from the top on one and it doesn't, and you pull the pin out and you look and you can see it's not going to line up, turn that pipe 180, the pin usually drops right in. I don't know why that happens. I think they're just slightly off on their jig or something. So both domestic and foreign pipe is the same. I've never found either one of the companies to be perfect. So that's one tip I can give you, is just turn the pipe 180 and usually it'll drop in. The other thing, and this really doesn't matter, this is anal tent guy, okay? I don't know if you noticed, but on your leg pipe, you have one end of it has 4 holes in it and one end of it has 2 holes in it. The 4 hole goes down. Doesn't matter? No. That's just the anal tent guy, okay? The reason for the 4 holes is we have a product, it's instead of cement, it's a water ballast, and the 4 hole has to go down in order to be able to pin into that ballast. The 2 hole goes to the top. Does it matter here what you're doing? Absolutely not. I'm just telling you why one side has 4 holes and one side has 2 holes.
So that must be a 4-hole, that one there.
That is a 4-hole pipe there.
Down there's a 2-hole.
That is a 2-hole,
Now I
yeah.
can see what,
Yep.
which is
Yep.
gonna be going, hey, get a 2.
Yeah.
Which one would throw me off to.
Yeah, yeah. It does not, in this application, doesn't make a bit of difference. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
He gives me a hard time.
Paper, same way, paper. Same
Yeah.
ends.
He's working on color codes.
Yeah. That was the other thing that I'm trying to do, is get into a color code at our company too, because what I found when I was in the rental business, and if you guys were a whole bunch of 18-year-olds that are coming to work for me, you don't give a shit. you don't care that that's a leg pipe, a perimeter pipe, or that's a 9'4", a 6'8", a 2110.5. So that's an orange pipe, that's a yellow pipe, that's a green pipe. We painted the inside of all of our pipe a certain color. So all of our 9'4s were yellow, all of our legs were orange, all of our 10'6" were brown, and so on.
That Richard guy, pretty clever. Not knowing.
Or if they stamped them like A.
Yep, yep, yep. I think that's done here. I saw one of the tents over there. I saw some magic marker. Yeah,
Before we did it.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So I like that idea. It allows you to integrate anybody in to help you. I know my girlfriend Jennifer here has gone with me in a number of these, and the last one we did, I started getting all tent geeky on her. I told her, you know, go get a bunch of 4-ways and go get a bunch of 6-ways, and she's like, you know. And if I would have said to her, go get 4 blue fittings and 4 white fittings, it would have been better than 4 4-ways and 2 6-ways or whatever. Yeah. So we also painted all of our fittings, and I gave up being a tent nerd, teaching my new guys all, you know, that's not a corner fitting, that's a yellow. That's not a side tee, it's a blue, you know, and that's, yeah. Yeah, I recommend it. It really helps. It really helps in the ability to take one leader out on a job site and be able to do things without having to go through the whole teaching. Now it's just a matter of material handling. Go get 8 yellow pipe, go get 8 white pipe, you know, bring them here, and so on and so forth. Makes it much, much easier. Our problem as a manufacturer is we deal with a fair amount of rental companies. There's 4 basic color codes throughout the country. So it's hard for us to say that we're going to paint all of those pipes yellow when that's the color that's used in the Midwest. On the West Coast, that pipe is usually brown. And in the Southwest, it's also brown. When you get down into Florida and the Southeast, all of a sudden that pipe changes to white. So it's hard for us to go ahead and color code everything because there are 4 major color codes in this country. So, but I would recommend it, you know, from your standpoint. How do you store this in the winter?
Shipping containers.
What's that?
We put it in a
Shipping container? Is it racked inside for the pipe, or is it just a cluster?
Yeah.
It will be.
Yeah.
Thrown in there.
Okay. You know, either way, whether you're throwing it, making a pile on the floor, or you're racked, you know, if it was color coded, it'd be much easier too. Again, when you're inventorying, when you're loading it onto the truck, when you're actually laying it out on the property. So, what else?
That's what I'm hoping. Once we drop the whole pyramid top, spray from the top down, so it looks like this when it's together. And without the cameras, you'll see the reds, blues, it'll all be on top. Just for visual.
Yep. Yep. We did all of our paint coating. We did it on the inside of the pipe, is where we put the actual paint. And the reason we did that was we stored everything in a rack in which the inside diameter is what you would see as you were facing the rack. So all of our yellow pipe was all of our white pipe, all of our blue pipe. And then on the fitting side of it, we painted from the marker hole forward so that when the fitting was inside, it was the paint was invisible. So that's the way we did it. Yeah. Yeah. So that's all I got, unless you got any other questions until tomorrow.
So coming in, no pins on that pole right there right now. What would you recommend? What's the easiest way to fix that if you're by yourself? I mean, a short guy like me, I'm not gonna be able to loosen that, push that up. You're better off to just bring a jack with you if you got a number of them or something.
I used a 2x6 board, and I loosened the straps on either side, and the one I was working on, and I just
Push it up. Yep.
pushed it up,
Yep.
put the
Yep.
pins in, and that's it.
Where I was just going was, do you have any extra pipe for, you said you had a tent collapse or something, so I assume you have some extra pipes and so on? that
So
are?
far, hopefully to replace it and get
Replace
that
it,
tank
okay.
operational, yeah.
I did do the same thing he does, except because I have a truck full of pipe, I just use the piece of pipe, and I put a foot, the base fitting on each end of that piece of pipe, pin it together, and then I just come in, plant that base here, put the pipe here, and then I can just pull or push up and support it here. Because yeah, you have to be 5'10", 6 foot tall enough to be able to reach that up far enough to get the pin in. And even then, this one, you got to be a monster to do it. There is a ton of weight because of the way this pipe comes down and the way this pipe comes down on the end. This one is very difficult to lift up by yourself. So some sort of bar, pipe, or a tent jack like I did over there, yeah. And I know the tent jacks are not, I mean, they're kind of cumbersome and everything else versus a board. So whatever you want.
Said you're trying to lift that spot, don't you?
Yeah.
Oh,
Yeah.
It's just a matter of which one we're taking down tomorrow.
yeah.
Does any of them compromise at all that could use a takedown?
I'd like to do the high school if we can.
But I would think so. Yeah, that would.
It's not drag around,
Seriously,
too.
that would be.
That's a good thing, because the one we did at the high school, we couldn't line up the laces.
Oh, okay.
Foot and a half off.
Okay.
That would be the best.
That would be the one then.
Because then we could perfect that one. The other one.
Is that where I was this morning?
Dimensionals.
No,
Okay.
that was middle school.
Okay.
High school's in a parking lot
Also, it's on
on
the
asphalt.
pavement, so that.
Okay.
Rich, if we're gonna do that, are we able to get power for the camera?
What about a generator? If we put a generator in the
will.
back.
IT guys, always throwing a wrench in
I'll
this.
run it by Ryan, because, like I said, this one we're pretty
have
confident
extension
in.
cord?
High school, we should have somebody look at it. But we'll get you power if we go over there.
Okay, perfect. That's
Generator?
Is there a reason
No.
just that extra pipe sticking out? Is that like that different style tent or something?
Yeah, if this was a 40 by 40, a square tent, you would have this whole same assembly on this side of it. So this pipe right here would be here going that way to make that assembly. So it's only used on a square tent where you use all of the pegs. And when it's on a rectangle, you don't use that one.
So if we took these two ends and made them together, that's.
Correct. Yes, correct. Yeah. So if you would move all of that piping that makes that end this way, it would go into that there. Yeah.
Now, a quick question, Peter, on the wires. Like at
Mm-hmm.
the middle school, we put up, and we skipped this one, and we put it back there. And I've noticed Mike doesn't have one back there.
Yep.
What,
It
is there one?
it actually belongs here and not there. Okay. I understand why you did it, and this is a supply chain issue that we've had. We don't build any of these fittings. They come from Thailand, the Philippines, and China. And I think what you'll notice here is there is a lack of a ring to connect this. Doesn't have this ring right here. So whoever in our supply chain department ordered these from China ordered them without ring, because some people, believe it or not, put these tents up without any cables whatsoever. Again, that's all a price point issue. Yeah, exactly. So I was looking at that over at the other place too, and I see what you did is you went to there because it has the ring, you skipped this because it didn't have the ring. Here they went through, there is a hole right here, and that probably makes this cable just slightly short or too tight, but I like it here better than there. Yeah. So the way this one is installed, I'm totally 100% comfortable with that, and that's the way they should be.
Would that ring be used for anything special? I mean,
Is what?
that ring down there, those rings, anything special?
Nope.
Lantern?
It just makes it so that it's universal, that you can use that fitting anywhere. Again, this goes back to price point. At one point in time, we sold this tent with that fitting with no ring on it to save a nickel. I mean, really?
Would it be better on the outside to hook the strap through?
No, it's just the way it is. So now we've gone to all fittings have rings. That way you don't have to separate them and figure out which one goes where. They just
cables are definitely more beneficial in the middle.
Yes, yes, yes. Yep.
Sounds good. And the blocking, is there anything special about the blocking, how that should be placed or anything like that?
No.
Distance wise,
Nope,
angles?
nope. The typical rule of thumb for staking is 7 foot tall. Your stake or your anchor point belongs 5 feet out, which would be right about here. When you use a dead weight, it typically is either 1 to 2 feet in from that 5 feet. So that's your, here's my 5 feet, here's your anchor point, you're perfect. You're more concerned at the anchor point of the dead weight, so that anchor point should be 3 to 4 feet out from the base of the pole, which is about where you have them. Whether the anchor is this way or this way or this way, doesn't matter. Dead weight is dead weight is dead weight.
Like the OCD, you're gonna want them all the same way.
Damn right I am.
Right, Richard?
Probably with some sort of a laser level that shoots a line down so that they're all.
I see this.
I was wondering, if you set these up, do you have to square the frame up before you do anything?
You shouldn't have to.
No.
If you assemble it with the cables, it should come to square. Yeah. Yep. Shouldn't have to. On a pole supported tent, a tent that has center poles, and then your out guys are what actually, that tension is actually what holds the tent up. Those have to be squared, and they are very picky. You have a plus or minus of probably less than a foot on where you put your anchor points to get those tents to stand up. These, quite honestly, the nice thing about these frame tents, they aren't that picky, okay? If for whatever reason there was, let's say there was a fountain right here, so you couldn't put this block right here, and you had to go 3 to 4 feet to the right or to the left of this to get that block in, it's fine. They're very flexible on where you put them. The thing that you need to keep in mind with dead weighting is the farther out you go, the less that weight transfers to usable weight. So in other words, if you pull that block out, say for sake of discussion, 1,500 pounds, and you move it out, say 8 feet out from the pole, that 1,500 pounds is no longer 1,500 pounds. It loses its value because of the angle of a guy. As you pull it in, it does the opposite, okay? It becomes more, that 1,500 pounds becomes more useful as you bring it in because it becomes a dead weight, okay? And as you go out, it becomes less. The effective weight becomes less. If you stay in that if you're 7 foot tall and you stay in that 3 to 4 feet out with the center of your anchor block, you guys will be great. They won't move around too much.
Is there any difference over a dead weight or a stake tent? I mean,
I like stakes, but I come from a rental background. Do you know how much money it would cost me to transport these to a rental site versus 24, in this tent, probably 40 stakes? Okay, 40 stakes doesn't weigh crap. Yeah, this, is crazy. So I only did dead weight jobs where they absolutely had to happen. Yeah, I've done like brownfield, I guess it's called, where it's a pollution site, and then they put a membrane down, and then they put dirt over the top. You can't puncture that membrane. I've done some where brand new parking lots, they just don't want new holes in there. Yep. I very, very rarely have done like this with the grass situation. To me, this is prime for staking. But you mentioned, or Ryan mentioned something over at the school that I never thought about, is the whole, we have children, we have crazies with guns and cars, and this keeps cars out of these tents and people getting crazy and running through, mass killing kids, and I never thought about stuff like that. That's a perfect This is,
Knucklehead
you know.
kids that like to jump from block to block.
Oh yeah, absolutely. That's gonna happen. Yep, that's gonna happen. Yep. Stakes, for the most part, if you have good soil, once you stake and once you've done probably the second once around on a tent, you can forget about them. These, they are going to creep a little bit, particularly on pavement. Okay, so you get these on asphalt, and if you can think about grains of sand as little wheels, and those little wheels are underneath that concrete block on top of that pavement. As you tighten on that, you can actually slide concrete blocks across pavement, more so than you can across grass and dirt. So they require a little more attention, I guess, than a stake does. But as long as you do it right, which you have done right, you're at 1,700 plus, and you're 4 feet out, that is equivalent to an 1 1/8 by 42 inch tall stake is driven 42 inches in the ground. So, and that's what we're looking for. We're looking for approximately 1,000 pounds of holding power right here at every strap. So we're looking for on this tent, I guess just to give you a little, I'm not going to go into the whole deal, but it's 40 feet by 100 feet. So that's 4,000 square feet. You're looking for a minimum of 15 pounds of holding power per square foot. So 40 times 15 is 60,000. That's what you're looking for. 60,000 pounds of holding power. So if I were to put a stake in, if I staked this tent, I would do 2 or 3 at the corner. I would do 1, then 2, 1, then 2, all the way around, and then I'm assuming that each of those stakes is 1,000 pounds of holding power. So roughly 60 stakes gives me the 60,000 pounds. I don't know how many blocks you have here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So that's 17,000, 34,000. 1, 2, 3, 5, 10. That's another 17. 34 and 17 is 40. You're a little short, you know, on what should really be here. Yeah. The easiest way to solve that, if it ever becomes an issue and these tents are moving, I don't think they're going to, but if they do move around, I would definitely add 1 block and 1 web guy per corner, so that your 2 of them, you're coming out at an angle. If you were to put 1 each 90 degrees on the corners, that would help tremendously on here, and then I'd be totally comfortable with the way you have these weighted. But if you use that number, and then that number 15 that I threw out, that's up for discussion too. The tent industry as a whole says anywhere from 7 to 12. Only reason I use 15 is because that's what a pole tent uses. And in the rental business, again, that pipe is yellow. You don't need to know if you're working with a pole tent or a frame tent. You don't care. So you're going to use the higher value. Safety first. That's the way I look at it. So if you do that math again with that 7 to 12 number, you're fine with what you have here. At my number, you're not fine. So, yeah. So.
Not to get into the math, I just can't comprehend. You put the stake in straight.
Mm-hmm.
Every time you go camping, you put that stake on an angle, and you go out as far away from that tent.
Imagine that you asked me this question.
Don't throw math at me. I'm just curious.
There's no math. I'm a visual aid guy.
Okay.
Stake, ground. Here's the tent. Tent is sitting on top of this ground right here. I drive this stake into the ground like that. I apply pressure to it. That pressure is being resisted by this giant block of earth, right? So as the web guy comes down, it's trying to pull this way. There is a slight component of this way up, but most of the component is this way. Okay? So this block of earth is what's resisting that pull. It's magic. Now, I take that same stake and I drive it into the ground at an angle, what did I do to that block of earth that holds back that pull?
No kidding.
It's not truly
That spot.
50%. It's actually about 30%. You'll lose 30% of your holding power by driving that stake in an angle, and now the pull is this way, the direction of my finger. And you can see I have lost all of this area here due to the angle if I were to put that stake in the ground like this. I've done this with a thing called a dynamometer, which is just a fancy name for a scale, and I use a tow truck. So I set the tow truck out 5 feet away from where I anchor it in, and I've done them side by side. And this will typically be 30 to 35% less holding power. So if this number was 1,000 pounds that the tow truck would measure on my dynamometer, when I got to this right here, it was generally 650 to 700 pounds, and it would pull out. Same soil, side by side, just driven in at an angle. So straight up and down, yes.
And you do the state sizes, the width.
Yeah, there's if you're interested in any of that kind of geeky stuff, there's years ago I was at a company called Salina Tent, and I did a ton of videos there. There are 2 excellent, I did the whole stake pulling demonstration video. I start with a 5/8 inch diameter, 18-inch long stake, and I work my way up to 1 1/4 by 42 inch, and we show the pulling values of all of them. It starts at around less than 100 pounds at that 5/8 stake, all the way out to 1,000 pounds at the 1-inch stake. So it's gettent.com, and then there's a link that's knowledge base or something, and then there's videos, and there's probably 30 videos that I did on there about all kinds of different things. So, invasion of the children.
Also, never tie a thing to a tree. Never anchor it to a tree with you. You know what I mean?
I'm never going to say I never did.
Come on, you went to the sports park. We, the trucks, a couple,
Yeah.
couple kegs. I mean,
The politically correct answer to that is it in the manufacturer's authorized installation brochure to use a tree? If it is not okay. So it is not okay. Have I ever done it? Hell yes.
At home.
Yes. I don't know. You know, you go down here, not that I'd want to put a tent on the side of this hill, but you take these mature trees, they're going to hold me snatching a web guy around it and attaching it to the tent. So much easier than me driving a stake into that root system and then trying to get it out. You know, it is ridiculous.
That's the point. Peter.
Yep.
The levelness of these.
Mm-hmm.
Once we get any kind of angle, how much? Then we start. I mean, the water ponding right off the bat.
Mm-hmm. Yep. You're gonna have water ponding on the uphill side.
Wouldn't be a factor on a slope like that too, getting, you know, if your wind say comes this way and you get a big opening versus a big opening.
Yes.
Let me change the parameters. I want to change the angle this way, lengthwise on the 100.
So you want it to run this way, or you want it to run this way on the 100?
100 to run this way.
Like this. Like in this tent here, you want the land to be like this?
Yep.
Well, nah, the only reason I'm laughing is I get a lot of people that ask me that question, and they'll do the same thing that I did, and they'll hold their hands like this, and I'm like, why? Why would you even want to put a tent up, you know, on a hill? That's why I was laughing. Okay. I'm trying to calculate the math in my head. There's a percentage number of, and then that equals X number of feet over X number of feet, and I'm just trying to do the math in my head real quick.
Well, I know you're not going to say 2.5 feet over 100. And that's what they shoot for.
2.5 over 100 is a pretty good.
That's a drop.
That's a pretty good drop.
Some of these things at the same time and try to anchor them right. I mean, that's going to make that vulnerable to slipping and sliding.
Well, I wouldn't do that. They make a foot. Okay, the foot that you have is only this tall.
Yeah.
They make a foot that's this tall that has holes every 2 or 3 inches so that you can set your eave height straight. You know, so you may be 7 foot all along that side, and then you may be 7'6" over here, 7'8", 7'10", 8 foot to get everything to be level. Without going through all of that, if you were, yeah, you could do that too. Scaffolding screw jack, I've seen that done. Yep. If you were less than 1 inch over 10, you'd probably be okay without doing anything. Now, 1 inch over 10 times 100 is 10 inches difference from this end to that end,
Right.
which is a fair amount.
And now I'm gonna babysit this end.
Yep, exactly,
Yeah.
exactly.
You can't tell red from blue, so I know the guy's not gonna babysit it.
Yep, exactly, exactly. Yeah,
Babysit them last year.
yep.
Yeah, now we just put it.
I'm not 100% sure how to answer that question. I really am not, as far as, to tell you. I wouldn't exceed 1 inch over 10.
Flattest spot possible.
That's a good number. 'cause
Yeah,
takes it
I would say 1
out-
inch over 10.
Takes it out of the equation
Yeah.
right off the
Yeah.
face of it.
Yeah.
Which for us, every place we are at Texas is pretty flat anyway.
Most of them are, they want to put by the flagpole at the high school. And now that it's, I could say no.
Yeah.
Yep.
Then we could put that one down back there then, because we can make it a 40 by 40, you know?
The only thing you would need to make it a 40 by 40 is that fitting up there is a 6-way. It would need to be an 8-way fitting. It's a different fitting altogether. But you could make it, a 10-foot, I don't know if all your fabric is in 20-foot middles. Okay, so the smallest tent you could make would be 40 by 60 with what you have. Yeah. Or you would have to order yourself an 8-way fitting there, and then you could build a 40 by 40 using just the 2 ends.
When we get, once the suit's all structured, we're getting 40 by 40. Yeah, hey, like Rex, they should be going. Give me a shirt with him on it.
So I think we can let Garrett pack up.
You're gonna get back for lunch.
Yeah, if you want to break that down.
Yeah, I think we're good.
So tomorrow we get to do the good stuff.